Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown, LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Caught, touchdown, Tyler Higbee. It's Michael Brockers who gets there.
A'Shawn Robinson.
Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Taylor Rapp, who had one taken away, will take this into the end zone.
Henderson with a good run and a first down, still on his feet.
Safety in the arms of Leonard Floyd.
Up top, touchdown, Van Jefferson.
Terrell Lewis. Everett in stride. Wow!
Hit behind the line. Terrell Burgess, 26.
At the goal line and in for his second touchdown. Malcolm Brown into the end zone.
Abu Khan with the strip sack.
Picked off by Troy Hill.
Akers with a stiff arm. Akers into the end zone. Cam Akers.
LA will play for the Lombardi.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It is episode 303. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And this is our first episode of us talking, and I'm sure I forget how many episodes there's going to be as far as Hard Knocks goes, but this is our first of the Hard Knocks series, where we basically tell you our thoughts on the episode that you guys watched. We're recording this on a Wednesday, so the day after Hard Knocks was aired. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe, leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And, as always, go ahead and tell somebody about the show if you like the show. Moving on, though, to this show. Originally, it was supposed to be the Chargers. It's supposed to be the Chargers Hard Knocks. And then, they actually didn't meet a criteria, and so they were up to be part of Hard Knocks. The Rams had already met the criteria. They already, were on Hard Knocks with Jeff Fisher, as many of you know. And so the NFL basically decided that with the new stadium, they didn't just want to have the Chargers, they also want to have the Rams. And so here we are now with the unprecedented two-team Hard Knocks, which we'll give our thoughts. But first, Alexis, I want to get your thoughts on the fact that they chose two teams and not, their typical one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising because the reality of it is, the reality of it is that they wanted the Rams and the Chargers both on there because of the new stadium. I think both teams were willing to be on Hard Knocks because it's promotion for the stadium, it's promotion for football in LA. So I think both teams, in actuality, would prefer that they were the only team on there, but I don't think that they necessarily had a problem sharing the series with the other LA team. I know Rams fans were pretty upset, about it. I know it's kind of frustrating personally because if I'm watching a show that's 50 something minutes long, I'd like all of that to be about the Rams, and now we have to split it with another team. Not to say that it's not still interesting, to watch the Chargers, but it does cut into the time that Rams fans get to watch what's going on with their team. So I get it. It's frustrating, especially if you're one of those Rams fans that doesn't like the Chargers. I personally don't have a problem with them, but if you're a Rams fan who really doesn't like the Chargers, then of course you're not going to really like seeing them all over your screen. But I thought that they did it well. I don't think that there is an issue with one team overshadowing the other. I know that some Rams fans felt like it was mostly Chargers, but Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, you timed the amount of time that each team was on screen, right? And it was pretty even.
Yeah, so I didn't get it fully dead on 29-20 or anything like that, but 29 minutes, give or take a few seconds here and there. 29 minutes for each Rams and Chargers appearance. I did this because I knew this was going to be the topic of discussion for a lot of people. We did have 1 full minute of a mix of video montage when they were going and showing the practice, not the practice, but when they were in the gym and they're showing the Rams and Chargers kind of side by side a little bit. So I did count that. So at the end of the day, you're looking, it was around 58, 59 minutes. And the Rams and Chargers were evenly split. So I thought it was a good job. I think the first thing that's going to, obviously fit right into your head is when you're watching it and you're a Rams fan, the first 5 minutes are Chargers. And it's about, if you haven't seen it already, spoiler alert, but it's about Anthony Lynn explaining that this is not going to be an easy season. And he sets the tone early by saying to his players that don't even know, I've been infected. And I think that needed to be said. I think it needed to set the tone. Keep in mind, they're not looking at this as though the Rams are better than the Chargers or the Chargers are better than the Rams. There's no way that Sean McVay had, anything that could have been more impactful in the entire offseason than when Anthony Lynn told his team that he contracted the virus. That was like the moment, like, okay, it just got real. And so I saw the way that they molded the whole episode. I felt like that is how they decided to do it. And they didn't want to do it like how, podcasting can be, where it's, oh, you speak, I speak, you speak, I speak. Like, they wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit. And I do respect them for that. And I thought that they did a nice job of fitting them both in. I think that was a great first scene. I'm glad Anthony Lynn, who does so much charity work all over, I'm glad that he is okay. But I'm also glad they showed when he said that, because it kind of shows you, like, these players are learning that for the first time. You saw the reactions. And I think that, some people were complaining about the Zoom calls. I think the Zoom calls perfectly captured what life was like during that time. Obviously, things are adapting, and we'll see that next week. But I definitely appreciated the beginning of that.
Yeah, and I think, this episode of, our podcast is about kind of what we took away from Hard Knocks. And I think kind of the complaint that a lot of people had is totally valid. And that's, there wasn't much football talk or football information, or, normally when you watch Hard Knocks, they introduce players, they show footage of them practicing and things like that, which they did to an extent. But the reality of it, guys, is that, COVID is really impacting the NFL. And I think that's what they were trying to show in that first episode. I mean, the biggest takeaway is, what is the NFL doing to minimize COVID spread among the players? And obviously it hasn't been perfect, because, every day it seems like a new player is being added to the COVID reserve list. They showed that, with Terrell Lewis in the Rams. In the last episode. So I think that the biggest thing about this episode and what it revolved around is COVID, and what it looks like to be in training camp in the NFL when COVID is happening. So I get that it's not super fun from a fan standpoint, because we're not really getting to look at the players the way that we want to look at them, where we feel that we're not learning any football information, but that's just kind of the reality of the way the NFL is right now. I mean, they said on the episode that they're not even putting pads on until week 3. They're just doing things differently. And so, I think that this season of Hard Knocks is really going to be not about the physical aspect of football, the actual playing of football. It's going to be kind of a more behind the scenes look, maybe a more personal, intimate experience watching the players and things like that. So it is going to be different. There's no denying it, especially after you watch the first episode. I think that really what we're going to see in this season of Hard Knocks is kind of the COVID impact. And again, kind of more of the behind the scenes look, as opposed to watching the players play.
I mean, yeah, that's how I took it. Also, you have to keep in mind that the NFL, of course, has to look over all footage, and so do the teams, and they have to agree on what's going to get released and whatnot. So, I mean, I understand that they want to put a heavy emphasis, because I know there were some people complaining about how long the testing video, the scenes were. And I mean, I get that, but, they're really trying to show people, in a way, it's kind of a PR statement by the NFL. They're trying to show people this is how it is. This is what we're doing. This was their way to, because keep in mind, this also helps the NFL, of course. This was their way to kind of advertise, like, look, we are testing our players every day. We're going through vigorous testing. This is how it works. So I did appreciate that. I know there were some people that didn't really care about the home life of the two coaches. I thought it was pretty cool. But I mean, it wasn't too long, so I didn't have an issue with that. I thought it was cool showing the players arrive to, the facility. It was cool showing how they created the outdoor facility. The same thing that our friend of the podcast, Steve Weish, reported, that, basically they created their own outdoor facility. They just made it from scratch, which I liked. And just like the different thing, like with Reggie Scott, how he was talking about, the protocols and things along that nature. Appreciated that. I guess because the Rams had already been on Hard Knocks, of course it's going to feel like they're missing some things because they had two teams, but it really felt that way for some people because, when you look at, you have an hour with one team and you saw the Jeff Fisher team, people will go back and they'll point to, the Kenny Britt, Brian Quick cart incident, and things like that stuck out to them. The quote unquote 7-9 BS. And I guess, I did notice that some felt like the Rams and honestly the Chargers as well. But since they were Rams fans on social media, they were talking about how the Rams left a lot out. What I'll say with this, Alexis, and I think this needs to be said because it's different. Back in 2016, things were normal. So they were able to show all that. I mean, I just think that there's so much going on and there's so many limitations. I just don't think there's much off the field to really show of these players. I mean, would you agree with that? Or do you think they definitely left some things out?
Well, totally. I mean, I don't expect this to be a thing where they're going to the players' houses like they normally do in Hard Knocks and kind of showing their family life because again, that's having to bring camera crew and producers and everybody into their homes, and everyone is trying to stay away from each other because of COVID, so they're obviously not going to do that. So basically this season I think is going to be pretty limited to the team's practice facilities, which is fine, but it is not going to be as intimate in that sense of kind of getting to see the personal lives per se, the players. But earlier when I said kind of more of a behind the scenes look with the players, I think that's going to be at the facility and kind of more like a meetings, whether that be Zoom or in-person meetings type of thing. Because again, they're also, at least right now and not for a while, there isn't going to be a ton of on-field stuff that we're going to be able to watch because they're just not doing it other than walkthroughs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it comes down to. And you saw, of course, the infamous Chargers cut, and I've already forgot the guy's name, but he kind of threw a fit, if we're calling it that. But we used to see those moments. We saw when everybody got cut in the Rams one. So, I guess you're kind of seeing in a sense, it's almost like you're watching a condensed Hard Knocks because they've been put in that position where they have to get two teams in there. It's going to be really interesting, though, when play starts to happen. I know JB Long, a friend of the show, tweeted out who the offensive line was, the personnel that they were running with, during that. I thought that was interesting. Andrew Whitworth at left tackle, Austin Corbett at left guard, Austin Blythe at center, and then you had David Edwards at right guard and Rob Hamenstein at right tackle. I know, I was a little bit, surprised. I mean, that's what I would have gone with because I think that Noteboom and Bobby Evans are going to be the left tackle and the right tackle of the future. So I think they just kind of want to get them focused on that position. But I guess, Alexis, what were your thoughts on the offensive line? Like that's what they're kind of rolling with to start camp. I know it can change, but do you have a good feeling about this five if they decide to roll with them for the year?
Yeah, I do. And that's kind of who I think they are going to roll with for the year. But, I think in a sense that they probably feel that that's what they're going to go with. But again, you never really know for sure until you have the pads on, you're practicing full force against the defense, offense and defense going against each other. So anything could change. It's not unusual for teams to go into training camp and think that their lineup is going to be one thing and then they end up changing it based on how people perform, also injuries and things like that. So I would say that that's a pretty safe bet, but again, I think that won't be entirely solidified until they're able to go full practice.
Now I'll ask you this: what were your thoughts on the Ramsey scene, the infamous Jalen Ramsey Zoom scene? Because I'll say this, I think he has been provoked. It's been the girly knee of the off season, and I get it. It's a limited off season. There's not a lot going on. But his contract is starting to really get him annoyed, and I can't say I blame him. What are your thoughts on that?
I get it. I mean, whenever you're in a situation and you're being asked questions like that, especially if it's kind of a formal environment, um, it can be frustrating when you feel that you are answering it politely, but you don't want to talk about it. And I feel like a lot of times you kind of make it obvious. Like I think he was pretty obvious that in his answer, that it was between the agent and the team, and that's all he had to say about it. And of course, they provoked him, which is that's what reporters do. I mean, that's what interviewers do. Like I get it. I think they probably didn't need to keep asking him like that, but again, it's understandable. That's nothing out of the ordinary. So I understand both sides of it. I would not have gotten up and left at that point. I mean, I don't really blame him. I think I'm sure it was frustrating. I don't think getting up and leaving during an interview is ever really a good look unless you're being like blatantly disrespected and something like that. I think silence honestly is the best way to just go about that. Just don't answer the question. But like I said, I don't judge him. I get it. It's frustrating. I'm sure he's really frustrated. Of course, you want the deal done. And he probably was being honest. He probably really didn't know where the state of negotiations were. A lot of times the players don't. The agent handles it and they wait on word from their agent. So he could have not known anything, like he kind of said, and he didn't want to talk about it. I think the reporters, after a couple times, should have gotten the hint and stopped asking him. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you there. I think again, it's kind of annoying. Just with everything going on, I totally understand the reporter side of things. I mean, obviously, there's some people that we know, that were on the call, so I mean, I get that. But at the same time, I understand Jalen Ramsey, who's he's going on a Zoom call and he's just talking to reporters, and it's like I feel like a lot of these players were hoping. And I think they knew that this was going to be the case, but I think they were hoping that wasn't going to be the case and that like reporters wouldn't still be a thing. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, I feel like a lot of them are like Marshawn Lynch in a sense. Like they're like, all right, I'm just here so I don't get fined. And they're like, oh, come on now through all this pandemic. And now I have to talk to people via, Zoom. I can definitely understand. And I can see that has been at least the case for some players. But one thing I will say that I really enjoyed is how they kept bringing up examples of what's going on in the real world. Like when Sean McVay talked about the Marlins, when Anthony Lynn mentioned the Marlins, it really completes the whole idea, the ideology that all these sports are really connected because of this virus for the first time ever, really. So, I mean, regardless of what happens with the NFL, I mean, if it were to get really bad in baseball, it could be really bad for the NFL. And I think that's the thing that people need to realize is that, when you have a virus like this, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, people are really quick to forget that the NBA is really the thing that set everyone else off. The NHL, I was on my way the next day. I was going to go to the Devils Hurricanes game. And I couldn't go because they canceled the season right before I was going to New Jersey. So like, and they did that right after the whole Rudy Gobert NBA thing. Like there was not one reported case in the NHL. It was just, that was how the world reacted. So I think, they did a nice job of kind of showing that like, look, we can do everything right, but there's still protocols that we have to take. And I don't know if you've been following Alexis, but of course, what's going on in Cleveland. With it was Zach Plesac, one of the top pitchers for them. He got caught outside of the area. He was like out and partying, I guess. So I mean, it's a serious thing, and I think both teams, just kind of looking at last night, obviously we didn't get a huge scope of everything, but I think both teams understand, they get it. And they seem like, they're both ready for the season. I mean, obviously they have a long way to go as far as play wise, but I feel like mentality, like you could tell the guys are back into, all right, this is our job and we're about to play football. I feel like kind of the off the field vacation vibe is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you have to realize with all this is that players have a lot of pressure on them already. I mean, playing a professional sport is not easy, obviously, from the physical aspect, from the talent aspect. You have to have a lot of natural talent, and you have to have an amazing work ethic, and there's a lot of things that go into just being able to play sports at a professional level. But then you're also put in the spotlight, you're put in the public eye. Things that you do off the field are also watched, and people hold you to a higher standard. So you already have all of that going for you if you play professional sports. Now you're basically being asked to do nothing other than the sport, because it's literally, I don't want to use the term life or death lightly, but in a sense, I mean, you have one guy on one team go out and be stupid and hang around a ton of people without a mask, and someone's infected, and then he gets infected, and then he's infecting an entire team, and then an entire professional sport is shut down. I mean, it's that serious, and it's that big of a deal. And COVID is that it's crazy, and it's unfortunate, and I can feel I feel empathy and sympathy for those guys, because it can't be easy. I mean, to kind of have to put your life on hold because literally the fate of your sports season is on your shoulders. And I think that we are asking a lot from them, and I think that they all want to play. So I think that most of them are going to do their job, and they're going to respect that, and they're going to do everything they can to not get infected. But at the same time, you have to hope that there's not one or two guys that kind of go rogue, because if they do and they end up infecting a ton of people, that's it. It's over. So that's, like I've said, we just want to get through the season. We don't want to, we want to start the season and we want to finish it. So hopefully everything goes well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I'll say that, it was hard to see Terrell Lewis, kind of like he was quarantined off. Kind of gives you some insight on what it means to be on the COVID IR, and how they were Zoom chatting him, and, basically like, oh man, that sucks. Hope, you'll be back soon or whatever. But, I think it gave a lot of insight. Now I'll ask you this: what is one thing, or maybe multiple things, that you're looking forward to in next week's episode of Hard Knocks?
Well, I would like to see some more, information about lineups and where players stand and what coaches are seeing on the field and things like that. I don't know by the time we have the episode next week, if I don't think they're going to be putting on pads, because they said week 3. But I'd like to see more insight into the process of figuring out, okay, who's going where, who can do what, who fits best where, that type of thing, which I think is what most people watch Hard Knocks for. So I would like to see that. Again, I don't know how much of that we're going to be able to see, but hopefully it will kind of be going in that direction.
Yeah, I lean with that. I'd like to see more football. Obviously, again, like you said, with the pads, we're probably, spoiler alert, because I think I'm right on this. I think we're probably going to see a lot of media day, because we saw, the pictures and everything. And I think that kind of puts us, because they record a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead. So I think that puts us right around where it will be media day next week. It was weird because this is the first Hard Knocks where they didn't show any previews for the next episode, which was kind of strange. But I definitely think you could see media day. I don't think we'll see football, like actual football, being played until week 3, week 4 of this show. It's really going to be interesting though, based on like everything that's going on, and just like how like the cut day was already, I mean, they've already done the 10 cuts, and it's going to be really interesting how they kind of build their team and who they decide to play, since they have, they have 80 guys, so that'll definitely be interesting. The whole social distancing thing. I mean, honestly, we don't know if this is even going to work. So, I mean, they're essentially holding a reality TV show in a sense that we don't even know how long this is going to last. Because, I mean, I'll say this, I know people won't like it, I'm still somewhat skeptical on if we'll have a football season. I hope we do. I absolutely want one. But I mean, I watched that whole Rudy Gobert thing happen, and you saw how quickly it can happen. You just explained. So, that is a thought of mine. So I think it's an unprecedented show in a sense, because we just don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know if it's going to make it to the end or not. There's no preseason, so we won't actually see any games. I know one thing I really liked about Hard Knocks in the past is you would watch the preseason games and then you'd watch Hard Knocks, and it kind of showed you like, the little things here and there that, a coach would yell at somebody for, or, commend somebody for, somebody would get into an argument or something. Like, you don't get that obviously when you're watching the preseason game on TV. So I do miss that part of it. We'll see next week. Like I said, I think it's going to be more, media day. But we'll see. Hoping again, more football, but again, we'll see. So that's going to do it for us on the first episode edition of the first Hard Knocks episode edition of this podcast. We'll be talking about every episode and giving you our thoughts. But for Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast, and we'll be back soon. Later, guys.